Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Development, brought to you by Avila Africa Insights, a subsidiary of Avila Africa. I am Rubitando Mtondilamo, your host today. Now, today we unpack the very complex world of SMEs and startups, and joining us to have that conversation is Cleola Kunene, Head of SME Development at the JSE. Cleola, thank you for being here with us today.
Hello, Nora. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Before we get into the nitties, maybe talk to us about your work and the work the JC does to support SMEs.
Okay, so in terms of me and my work, I obviously am the lead and executive for SME development at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, JSE, which is amazing because it's Africa's largest exchange and plays a very fundamental role in growing our economy. In terms of other work that I do, I'm on the stakeholder of the Startup Act. I serve on a few boards, including 2 VCs. I also contribute to the strategy for SADC and the national agenda for the country. So there's quite a bit that I'm doing as an individual as well. But SME fundamentally, generally, is my core focus and my purpose.
With that said, let's get right into it here. When we speak about the SME landscape, maybe in South Africa and possibly SADC, we of course speak about it in the context of lagging economic growth, but also, investments, maybe a bit tight at this point. We are in a high interest rates environment. Let's talk about the landscape and what you see at this point.
I think it's not per se tight for investment. I think it's tight economically. If you look at any kind of economy where things are not growing as fast as it should, you're almost coming from a perspective of lack as a perspective of opportunity. And that is where the first challenge lies in terms of why we're seeing such a high churn. Is that we don't take advantage of a lot of opportunities, and that's where the de-risk and the lack of appetite to just invest comes in. In comparison to where there is high growth, there's more an appetite to say, okay, let's see, because there's more chances for this to grow. But in terms of our landscape for SMEs, we have about over 2 million companies in South Africa. Majority of them are between micro, even informal and small. But we have a nice little middle section of about between 45,000 companies that are between 5 and about, say, 15 million, and then companies that are medium and medium size are obviously the companies that are under the billion mark, about 25,000, 35,000. Let's call it altogether medium sized companies, about 100,000 in South Africa, right? If we have to look at that landscape. Now, the challenge is when we look at between the middle and large, now it's very thin in terms of large enterprises. And large enterprises are about 10,000 in the country, and really blue chip are. So if you look at the South African market, there's about 2.2 million companies, and South Africa's structure is almost a pyramid type structure with very few companies, large enterprises at the top, and a lot of informal small companies at the bottom. And this poses a problem for so many reasons. The middle being about probably 100,000 companies aren't growing fast enough to become large enterprises. So if you rely as an economy only about 10,000 large enterprises, considering large enterprises create the most jobs and have the most stability, there is fundamentally also a different set of problems in terms of investment. So what we want to focus on is really moving a lot of those medium-sized companies to become large enterprises, and that's where the opportunity lies for us as a country, because we'll see if we have more of those companies that are sustainable and in terms of not just their growth but fast-tracking their growth and creating more sustainable employment. We will also see the entire ecosystem and the value chain really benefiting from that. So we want to also see those large enterprises, really blue chip companies, increase as well, because blue chips are, as much as we want in this, my focus is SMEs. I also understand that we do need more blue chip companies to provide sustainable growth for SMEs as well.
With that, Cleola, I want to speak about that issue. In my mind, it's graduation. The small become medium, and the medium kind of become big blue chip companies. Yeah,
Yes.
I want to speak about that jump from small to medium, and maybe what we are seeing there. What are the levers that we need to be pulling to enable that environment, and also what might be getting right, because of course it's not all doom and gloom.
Yes, it absolutely isn't all doom and gloom. I think that the nice thing is because, you know, when you are in an environment where there's lots of challenges, Africa, we have institutional voids. We're also very good at entrepreneurship because we solve our problems. So number one, Glimmer, very optimistic in that regard, that we are very good at problem solving. And why does that benefit us? Even when we grow into other economies and other markets that are fast growing, we grow very fast because we know how to build businesses. In terms of just moving those small companies to medium, the key levers are market access, sustainable growth. That's why we have so much development, incubation, and ecosystem support. And where I really focus in on is the funding landscape, bringing the ecosystem together, but also making it easier for companies to access funding and get funding ready. And why is that so important is that we have to get better at funding readiness in terms of governance, how we run our businesses, understanding what's right for us, but also understanding how we're going to grow and the details around sustainable growth and building annuity businesses.
With that said, let's talk about the issue of becoming funding ready. Because of course, many companies and many SMEs, if you speak to them, will tell you that all I need at this point is some capital. But you might also find that in my mind, we have two different kinds of SMEs. Those who possibly, emerge to solve bread and butter issues, very survivalist in nature, and then those, of course, who seek to maybe solve a societal problem or to really grow and become a medium-sized and maybe even a large entity in the future. And based on that, it does complicate the landscape a little bit because there could be gems hidden in both of these pots, and then the work that it takes to prepare him for capital raising or funding, and then even to help them grow to become a medium-sized enterprise. The work is very different, isn't it?
It is really different. And the good news is that funding is so diverse as businesses are. It's not the 70s or the 80s where your bank was the only place where you could go for funding, and loans was the only thing. Debt is not the only thing, but even debt in itself has evolved so much. There's so many varying structures of debt. I think for any business that wants to access funding, the first question I would ask is, do you really need it? Are you ready to take on that accountability, and I'll call it accountability, of someone else's money in your business? So the first thing is also understanding where are you in your life cycle as a business, because there's so many different stages of funding. If you are at pre-seed and ideation stage, what is the best type of pre-seed funding? And usually that's where we talk about bootstrapping or family, friends and fools. Maybe your church wants to raise some funding for you. I don't know. But if it's ideation stage, there are very few in South Africa at least, very few ideation funders. We are seeing an increase in funders that are funding IP commercialization, which is a different form of ideation that's based on an idea that's been proven, that's an IP. However, pre-seed is very difficult. Seed, a little bit better, but again, that's not where, for instance, VCs would play, right? There you are going to look at going into debt and looking at debt financing. A lot of companies would say, I want grant funding. However, even grant funding comes with accountability. Are you as a business accountable and ready for that, right? It doesn't mean it's just free money. There is no such thing. It does not exist, right? Every money, every cent you get comes with something that you have to be accountable for. And the fundamental accountability for you as a business is ensuring that you are credible, that you are sustainable, and that you can deliver what you say you're going to do. So you have to really be able to walk the talk and be able to demonstrate that your business is sound. And that's the first thing that you also need to do when you say, I want funding, go back and say, are my financials in order? Right? When you start looking at financials and you actually start unpacking what is required, just the basics in terms of making sure you've actually accounted for your business. you've kept the records, you've kept your receipts, and you can demonstrate what's happening with your money, what's coming in, what's going out, how it's been spent, what it's been spent on, the fundamentals. And then as you go into how much money you want, the more money you want, the more due diligence is required. But there is so many varying financing options today. There's microfinancing, there is a lot of invoice financing, purchase order financing, so many debt structures, so many different types of VC structures. And then, obviously when you get to a different maturity level, now you can look at private equity and ideally also look at public capital, which is listing.
It's an interesting term that's used by lots of banks here, backing the jockey, the horse, and the track. And it is a tricky one because often it does matter that all three tick very certain boxes. I want to speak about that, the jockey, the horse, and the track,
Yes.
and the importance of all of them at least being coherent enough for a good story to be told during the capital raising phase.
So when we look at backing the jockeys, most times what you'll see is the jockeys that are backed are people that have had various businesses already. It's not their first rodeo. They have a proven track record, either proven track record in terms of they've worked in a corporate environment. You will see some people who've been CEOs, etc., or they actually are sound incredible, right? Somebody can vouch for them. Or they can say, look, I've had a great business, this is a second business, or this is an idea, but they can demonstrate some level of credible acumen in terms of building and sustaining a business. Again, it's not your money. So if I come to you and I say, listen, give me your money, why? The question really is, why would somebody trust you to give you money? So trust, again, yes, it's about the jockey itself, you as an individual. It's about the business itself and whether this business is sound. But also when they say the track, it's around understanding your market opportunity, your clients, and not a forecast that is imaginary. Demonstrating that you've actually done the work. If you say, okay, I've grown by 2 clients this year, but I'm thinking next year I'm going to get 10 clients. Who are the 10 clients? Is it really feasible, or can you maybe really reasonably secure 5 clients? And that is also where authentic honesty is better than trying to sell a pipe dream. If you can say, actually, I can only really get 5 clients credibly, but if we push, we can maybe get 6 or 7, as opposed to saying, no, we can definitely get 20 clients, 100 clients. Nobody's going to buy that. So rather be credible, be honest, be authentic, be real as possible, and have varying best and worst case scenarios when you think about this, and have honest conversations with the person that you want to invest in your business.
Look at the aspect of just intimidating spaces when it comes to capital raising. And as you put it, there's a lot of boxes you need to tick. You really need to have a good story to tell, and even your numbers need to tell this a good story. I want to speak about that issue of intimidation here, maybe even the kind of advice you need to be able to be tapping into as an SME owner to make sure that you are seeking, whether it's putting together a financial model or it's getting the right legal advice. But the team, Cleola, that you might have to put together to make sure that you are coherent, that you are telling an honest story, and that you understand your business, as you're saying, that's an important aspect as well.
So the good news is it's not like Shark Tank. You don't show up and you have to pitch your business and you have this panel of people who are going to just tell you a lot of bad or good things. Investment is a conversation, right? It starts with a conversation and people they're there obviously because they want to invest. This is the other side. Somebody saying, I want to invest in your business. Even banks now, it's not back then where you had to just have a good relationship with your banker. There are people with real mandates who want to say, we have the capital, we have the funding, we need a good business. So it's a two-way street, by the way. So you're being wooed as much as they, as you're trying to woo them. So consider it like it's dating on both sides, right? So that's really the good news. It's not you coming there, saying, okay, please, sir. It's really people who want to give you money. They just want to know that they can trust you to ensure a return on investment. And that's where the credibility comes in. So it doesn't have to be intimidating. It's just about making sure that you ask yourself the questions before someone else asks you those questions. And where you do need the guidance and advice, and why we focus on funding readiness and providing funding readiness support, is saying these are some of the considerations and things that you need to ask. So when we say sales and marketing, we're not saying give us your 7 Ps, or I don't know what it is now, or your marketing. It's really saying, have you considered who you're really trying to sell to? Have you considered, what is really your market opportunity? Is your business plan just a draw exercise, or have you really thought about who can I partner with? Am I pricing my product? Have you actually looked at who's your competition? And it's just actually demonstrating that you have really thought through this, because the last thing you want to do is go in and have the conversation, and the first time you actually think about it is when somebody else is asking you the question.
I want to speak about the listing pipeline that we see, and maybe even trying to understand what it might take to be building a business that will list. And I'm very also aware of the fact that, listing isn't necessarily a such short-term plan that might be incorporated within a business. Certainly always a long-term here. But I do believe that there might be deliberate steps that you have to take from the get-go if it is an avenue that you would like to explore at some point. Let's talk about that intentionality, Cleola, and what it looks like when you are being intentional as an SME owner.
That's an amazing question. I think, a lot of companies are not intentional about funding. It's like, I need the money. It shouldn't catch you by surprise. There's some amazing businesses, and if you look at the most amazing businesses, they're looking at what is that goal? What can 5 years from now look like? They're not fearful of thinking in terms of, $200 million and saying, that could be us, right? So what does it take to build a business that, lists one day? It starts with your vision. Why are you doing this? And thinking of yourself and your business as potentially that big business, because then you're working towards something that's phenomenal. The other aspect is that, yes, we've got different boards and opportunities as well. We've seen companies come on Altex, which is your medium-sized company. So not necessarily everybody starting at main board and starting big. They also have companies that have come on and listed at a more smaller scale and then built up to big board, to the main board. I'll give an example like Curo. Curo started, as a medium-sized company on Altex and then transitioned onto the main board. They didn't start off saying, okay, we're just going to go onto the main board. So what they did do right, though, and what many companies did do right, is that they saw the vision and they already started day one saying, let's do the right things, which is, again, good governance, good management, thinking about themselves as a big business, but with the agility and flexibility of a small business. And when they think of themselves as a big business, it's just saying, we have good HR practices. So when we recruit people, we actually do a contract. We agree this is what you're working for. We don't just say, listen. Yeah. And one of the things I would always encourage any SME to invest in is legal. It's the one thing that I would say is critical, because if you're not willing to invest in protecting your business and doing certain things right, the challenge isn't when things are going well. The challenge is when things go wrong, right? I always say, and it's not a good example, it's not the marriage, it's the divorce. 100%. Right? So even if you're bringing in shareholders or you have supply agreements, right? Even if you're agreeing to, a company giving you a contract or somebody giving you a contract, an opportunity, understand what you're signing up for, understand if it's the right fit for your business, and be willing to negotiate. And at least, even if you're saying, okay, I just need one review from a legal firm to look at this contract for me, that could save you millions down the line. So those are some of the things that companies need to invest in. Just good business practices, good financial practices, and not fearing the financial aspect of the business, because you're there to make money, right? You want to make money.
I'm so sorry. This is the time that I normally wake up on a Saturday. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Jaya. I'm so sorry, guys. That's normally the time that I wake up, okay, on a Saturday. So sorry about that.
So essentially, you're there to build a business that's sustainable, a business that employs people, and that you're proud of. So doing the right things from the beginning is about understanding that you're building a business that eventually is going to list and that people publicly would want to invest in.
Let's also talk about, innovating, and that's from even the likes of the JSC, the likes from VCs, and becoming fit for purpose. What we do know is the fact that the SME journey, the startup journey, is just not linear. It's not. It's complex, and also, like you're saying, in environments like South Africa with low economic growth, it can become just difficult. It can take longer for there to be the kind of progress that a VC or even the JSC might even appreciate. I want to speak about innovating from the side of a VC, from the JSC, being fit for purpose for the African market, for the South African markets, and not maybe also pitting ourselves against what might be happening in the US or in Europe.
We certainly have evolved. There is a maturity that's coming in terms of how we fund it. And the first sign of that is that we're seeing such a significant increase in investment in SMEs. We haven't in the past seen so many tangible angel investors, VCs, private equity, listing. There's no, people said, oh, listing, there's more listing now. If you look at how many companies listed on the JSE this year already, we're seeing such a focus for both the SME space and the investor space to cohesively come together and solve for ourselves. So I honestly think that, yes, when we look at the low risk appetite, it's not necessarily just because of the economy. It's where people are saying, what do I want to invest in? Right? What's right for me? But is the investment mature? It's matured significantly. And we see that in terms of fit for purpose, also in terms of where companies start thinking already. When they're raising for seed, they're already thinking, am I raising enough for Series A, Series B, to get to the next level of raise? So there's a maturity in how companies raise, how VCs invest, how debt vehicles are structured. So there's even VC debt coming into South Africa, right? So we're seeing a real maturity and fit for purpose in terms of South Africa. Also guarantee funds, right? There's more emergence of guarantee funds, and what that essentially means is saying, there's a backup and guarantee for companies where we're seeing a challenge with companies not being necessarily sustainable. But I want to talk a little bit about fit for purpose in terms of what else we've created. The ecosystem itself, especially if you look at development and the role of ESG, is that we've created a sustainable ecosystem of support. Right? There's so much training, there's so much support, there's so much, I would almost call it hand-holding, right, that's happening in South Africa right now, that you're spoiled for choice in terms of where you can go and who can assist you. It wasn't the case like 10 years ago, right? Who would you go to 20 years ago to help you for your business? Now, you literally can go and search online. There's multitudes of service providers, companies, etc., that are providing so much support that a company has got a significantly higher chance to get access to market, access to real support, and access to funding, right? There's ESG funding, there's grant funding. I mean, government in itself has so many variations of funds. And all we're saying is meet us halfway, right? The support is there, the sustainable ecosystem is there, impact financing is there. There's just, you're spoiled for choice, quite honestly. It's very, very different from what it was so many years ago. If you started a business 15 years ago, you were on your own, basically, and now you could go to so many options for any company to get support. I think the challenge is still education at foundational level, right, in terms of how to run a business sustainably, and then again the governance aspect of it, and then last, like I said, is just a function of a high growth economy versus a slow growth economy.
Are there sectors that are hotter than others?
Always. Not everything is equal, but for different reasons. I think manufacturing is still core and is still, manufacturing primary industries such as agriculture are still king. And why are they king? Because although it takes them longer in terms of to get going, once they get going, they are sustainably for a long time. And they also have been shown to create more jobs sustainably over a longer period, right? So manufacturing, education, all of these things, health, agriculture, still very, very attractive industries. But then of course, tech is always booming, and we've seen, especially since COVID, that tech has really, really boomed again. And then health tech. We've seen a surge in terms of the entertainment and content industry really doing well with the combination of technology. And then we also have a high growth focus on ESG, that's sustainability. And we're looking at ESG, whether it's environmental, social impact, and the core of governance, right? So sustainability is a core focus, not just in Europe, but around the world, where we're seeing that businesses that are intentionally creating impact in their communities, in their environment, are also doing very well, and investors are very keen to put their muscle and their voices and their resources behind sustainability businesses.
I do a lot of work at Cleola speaking to SMEs, and I think...
Sorry, just give me a sec. Zolani, sit still, please. You are distracting me. Sorry.
That's okay. I'll go again. So there are, I do a lot of work speaking to SMEs, and I think there's also a bit of a defeatist culture where there is the idea that, there aren't enough resources, that funders don't want to fund them, that, there isn't sufficient support. There is that also bit, Okay, so I speak to a lot of SMEs there, and one thing I have picked up is just maybe a tone of defeat that lives amongst them, that there isn't sufficient support, that funders don't want to fund them. I want to find out about access to information for SMEs, and of course it is the job of an SME to make sure that they are equipped with information. But could we be centralizing insights? Could it be centralizing information to make sure that the ecosystem is better equipped to equip?
Absolutely. I think there's also still a lot of work to do for the ecosystem itself. And I'll give an example. I love this example. If you look at what India did, in 92 they created Masscom. And what they essentially did is they brought together their digital value chain. And they said, think digital, think India. Right? So they went from those that are basically creating, building the skills capability, to those that are nursing the digital skills, right? To those that are actually developing the digital technology, to those that are selling and saying, let's bring everybody together, and underline that also the actual funding of it. So they created an entire value chain. Whereas, and what did that lead to? That lead to India providing the highest level of digital skills globally, right? And then obviously followed by countries like Pakistan, etc. If you look at just online, with technical support, India provides 7 million jobs, or they've got 7 million people that provide technical digital support to the US, never mind all around the world, right? So where we are struggling and where we need to do better as an ecosystem is, one, coming together, because it's not just about you, it's about all of us. And the more you have the ability to collaborate with the rest of the ecosystem, and understanding that us working together within the entirety of the value chain serves everyone. Because as an entrepreneur, it's also very difficult to know where to go, who's the right person for what. But if we come together and say, within the value chain, this person provides this person provides that person, it, number one, creates a seamless ecosystem for a company to say, I'm going to start here and then go there. You know what I mean? Who do I work with? Who do I collaborate with? And then secondly, and that holds true whether it's development, whether it's government, whether it's financing, all aspects, right? We're still very siloed, unfortunately, and that is not serving us. And that is also not serving the entrepreneur in terms of access to the right kind of information or the right kind of person to work with for their stage of growth. Secondly, it's also around just understanding that for you as a business, yes, you need to be able to access the information, we need to provide the information, but we're also learning and maturing ourselves in terms of understanding what are the gaps. What does an entrepreneur really need to fast track their growth? What does an SME really need? And what can we tangibly provide them? That is not just about us building out a set of products or services, but what can we tangibly provide them that's going to make that difference and make that switch? And you're seeing that maturity in industries such as Indonesia and Hong Kong, etc., where they sometimes just have a specific focus in terms of what do you need, to make sure that you can scale and build a sustainable business. The other aspect also in terms of just that sustainable growth, access to information, etc., is also around the role of centralization. So centralization essentially means that there is one central party that coordinates everything with everyone else. Essentially, government is supposed to play the centralization role, and I think strategically and from a policy perspective, they are trying to do that. If you look at what the Department of Small Business is doing, and institutions such as CEDA, etc. However, it's very difficult if you look at centralization with ESG specifically being a requirement, because how ESG is structured is that you as a company essentially have to deliver ESG on your own, and you're not basically rewarded for working rather with others. So it's also about how we reward the structuring of information and the structuring of collaboration. So there's still a lot of work for us to do as well as an ecosystem to make sure that this information is cohesive, that the support is cohesive, and then everything else kind of follows, kind of flows from there. And then understanding also as an entrepreneur yourself, where in your life stage are you and what is relevant for you within your life stage. Again, not all funding is equal. So if you're not a high growth business and you are a run-of-the-mill service business, right? Why are you going to a VC? A VC is structured for high growth. They're looking at what's the next big thing, right? So also understand what's right for you in terms of your business, because you're going to go to a lot of people, get a lot of declines and no's, and they say, well, nobody wants to help me. Well, understand what's right for you as well. And I think that's very important.
With that said, Cleola, before we wrap, 3 things you want SMEs to know about the capital raising process, making sure that they are fit for purpose, but also that they are accessing the right kinds of information, and maybe thinking about their businesses more strategically to prepare themselves.
I think it's a journey. It's not an overnight thing. Funding is not a quick thing. Because the moment you want to access funding, you have to really think about what am I going to do with this money once I get it. The purpose, and I think every entrepreneur needs to know this, the purpose behind funding is to really give you the resource to be able to ensure that your business grows fast. So if you're saying, I want R1 million, you should know what you're going to be doing with every single cent within that R1 million. So think about it and understand that money is about growth. And so if you're not sure what you're going to be doing with that money, first of all, you may not even get it. Or you may ask too little and then have to go back and ask for more because it's not going to help you achieve what you need to achieve. Or you may ask for too much. And then you go through this rigorous due diligence process and, it's too much money, you can't afford that money and you can't really demonstrate a return on investment. And unfortunately, that also is where we see a lull, where companies are able to raise once but not able to raise again. Right? So I think the core thing for anyone is think about really, if I want funding, what am I going to do with it? Why do I need it? I think that's key. Yeah.
Cleola Kunene, thank you so much for joining us today and also for unpacking this very complex and very important topic for us. And that was Cleola Kunene. She is Head of SME Development at the JSE.